What is eudaimonia? And why does a life that looks good still feel incomplete? I went into the work of Aristotle looking for answers, and found a quiet truth most people never face. Happiness can fill your moments. But it cannot fill your life. Because a good life is not something you feel. It's something you become. Let's slow this down. Because right now, you might be asking, what is eudaimonia, really? The word sounds complex. Even strange. It's pronounced daimon, nay, oo. But the sound is not the point. The meaning is. It comes from two Greek parts, eu meaning good, and daimon, meaning something like your inner spirit, your deeper self, the part of you that knows who you could become if you actually lived up to it. So eudaimonia is not just happiness. It's not a feeling at all. It's closer to this, living in a way that brings out your best self over time. Now think about that for a second. If that's true, then what you feel today doesn't define your life. Your direction does? And that raises a hard question: if eudaimonia is a way of living, then why do so many people feel empty, even when everything looks fine? You see it everywhere? Someone has a stable job, a comfortable home, free time, access to everything, and still feels like something is missing. Not dramatic. Not painful. Just off. Like something important never started. That's the gap between feeling good and living well. And this is where most people get confused. Because we were taught that happiness is the goal. Feel good. Stay comfortable. Avoid stress. But what if that model is incomplete? Let me make it simple. Happiness is a moment. Eudaimonia is a direction. One is emotional. The other is structural. You can have a good day and still build a weak life. You can struggle today and still build a strong one. So is eudaimonia the same as the good life? Yes, but not in the way people think. Not a life filled with ease. A life filled with meaningful effort. Let me give you something real. Think about someone training for something difficult. Not for attention. Not for quick reward. But because they want to become stronger, sharper, better. It's not always fun. But it feels right. That feeling, that quiet sense of alignment, that's closer to eudaimonia than pleasure ever is. Now flip it. What's the opposite of eudaimonia? It's not sadness. It's a life with no direction. A life where you react, consume, scroll, distract. But never build. A life where days pass, but nothing grows. And here's the uncomfortable part. That kind of life can feel fine. Which is exactly why it's dangerous. So now the real question becomes, are you trying to feel good? Or are you trying to live well? Because those are not the same path. So let's go deeper. If eudaimonia is not a feeling, then what actually builds it? This is where Aristotle becomes very precise. He wasn't guessing. He was observing how people live, and why some lives feel whole, while others fall apart. He asked a simple but brutal question: what is a human life for? Not what feels good. Not what is easy. What actually makes a life good from start to finish? And his answer was clear: a good life is built through virtue, what he called arete. But don't think of virtue as rules or morality in the shallow sense. Think of it as excellence in how you live. Not what you say. Not what you post. What you do, repeatedly. Courage when things get hard. Wisdom when decisions matter. Self-control when temptation is easy. Fairness when no one is watching. Now pause. If those are the building blocks, then what happens when they are missing? You get a life that feels scattered, reactive, unstable. You feel good sometimes, but you don't feel grounded. And that's the problem most people can't name. They chase happiness without structure. Let me make this sharper. There are two types of happiness. The first is hedonic. Pleasure, comfort, relief, food, scrolling, entertainment, distraction. It works fast. It feels good. But it fades. The second is eudaimonic. Growth, meaning, direction. It doesn't always feel good in the moment, but it builds something that lasts. Now ask yourself, which one have you been optimizing for? Because your daily habits answer that question, even if you don't. Here's something interesting. In modern psychology, researchers like Edward Deitch and Richard Ryan found that people who focus on meaning, autonomy, and growth report higher long-term well-being than those chasing pleasure alone. Not just emotionally, but physically too. Lower stress markers, better resilience, more stable mental health. That's not philosophy anymore. That's measurable. So let's connect this back to your life. Why does comfort sometimes leave you empty? Because comfort removes pressure. But it also removes direction. And without direction, your mind starts to drift. You scroll. You consume. You distract yourself. But nothing builds. Now compare that to someone working towards something meaningful. It's harder, slower, sometimes frustrating. But there is a sense of movement. A sense of becoming. That's the difference. So is a good life about comfort? Or growth? You already know the answer. But here's the deeper problem, most people don't avoid growth because they're lazy. They avoid it because they were never taught that growth is the path to fulfillment. They were taught to feel good, not to become good. And once you see that, you start noticing it everywhere. The question is, now that you see it, the real problem is not that you want happiness. The problem is that most of us were taught to settle for the shallow version of it. We were taught to chase comfort, pleasure, praise, and relief. And yes, those things matter. They can help. They can even heal in the short term. But they cannot carry the full weight of a human life. Aristotle's point in the Nicomachean Ethics was that eudaimonia is not one more reward sitting next to money, status, or pleasure. It is the highest end, the thing that makes life worth choosing as a whole. And that changes everything. Because now the question is no longer, what will make me feel better today? Now the question becomes, what kind of life am I building? That is a much harder question. But it is also the honest one. This is where modern psychology starts sounding a lot like ancient philosophy. Carol Riff's work on psychological well-being does not reduce a good life to pleasure. It points to deeper dimensions, purpose in life, personal growth, autonomy, self-acceptance, strong relationships, and the ability to manage life well. In other words, well-being is not just feeling okay. It is functioning well, growing, and living with direction. And when researchers look at what supports long-term well-being, they keep coming back to the same pattern. Richard Ryan and Edward Deitch's self-determination theory argues that people do better when three needs are met: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Put simply, we need to feel that our life is truly ours, that we are getting better at something real, and that we belong to others in a meaningful way. When those needs are supported, motivation and well-being tend to rise. That is why a life that looks good can still feel empty. You can have comfort without growth. You can have pleasure without purpose. You can have success without inner direction. And if you have all three of those missing at once, the emptiness makes sense. Not because you are broken. Because your life may be overfed on stimulation and underfed on meaning. There is real evidence behind that. Research on purpose in life has linked stronger purpose with better emotional recovery after stress. Other work has tied eudaimonic well-being, especially purpose, growth, and strong ties, to better health and even longer lives. That does not mean purpose makes you invincible. But it does mean meaning is not just a poetic idea. It affects how people adapt, recover, and stay psychologically steady under pressure. Now here comes the twist. Eudaimonia is not the soft option. It is not the easy path. It is not good vibes. It is not permanent calm. It is not escaping pain. In many cases, it asks more from you than pleasure ever will. Why? Because pleasure often says, rest here. Eudaimonia says, grow from here. That is why striving for a better life can feel harder at first. You have to face yourself, your habits, your excuses, your distractions. You have to stop treating comfort like a life goal and start treating it like a tool, useful in the right place, dangerous in the wrong one. Even the modern evidence around social media points in that direction. Broad social media use does not affect everyone the same way, and the research is not simple. But reviews keep finding that problematic use is linked more consistently to worse mental well-being. That matters, because endless scrolling can give quick pleasure while quietly draining attention, purpose, and self-direction. It gives you stimulation. It rarely gives you a life. So is eudaimonia realistic today? Yes. But only if you stop expecting it to feel easy all the time. A meaningful life still has joy. It still has laughter, rest, beauty, friendship, good food, simple pleasure. Aristotle was not telling people to become machines. He was saying pleasure is not enough to guide a whole life. Enjoyment belongs in a good life. It just cannot be the ruler of it. And this is where people often get stuck. They hear virtue and think punishment. They hear discipline and think misery. They hear purpose and think pressure. But that is not the full picture. Real discipline can protect your peace. Real purpose can steady your mind. Real virtue can make you trustworthy to yourself. That is a very different kind of freedom. So what do you actually do with this? You start small. Very small, if needed. You stop asking, how do I feel right now? Every 5 minutes. You start asking better questions. What am I practicing every day? What kind of person are my habits turning me into? What in my life creates growth, not just relief? What drains me because it is empty, even when it feels good? That is where the lessons begin. First, choose one area of life where you will stop drifting. Maybe your body. Maybe your work. Maybe your relationships. Maybe your mind. Pick one. Then stop waiting for the perfect mood. Aristotle's view is brutal in the best way. Character is built by repeated action. You do not become courageous by admiring courage. You become courageous by doing courageous things. You do not become disciplined by liking the idea of discipline. You become disciplined by practicing it. Second, trade passive pleasure for active meaning, at least once a day. Build something. Learn something. Repair something. Write something. Grow something. Serve someone. Make one choice that leaves you stronger than you were this morning. That is how a life changes. Not in one grand speech. In repeated acts. Third, protect the three things modern psychology keeps pointing to: autonomy, competence, and connection. Do not hand your entire life over to other people's approval. Get better at something that matters. Stay close to people who pull you upward, not downward. Fourth, reflect. This matters more than people think. A short self-audit at the end of the day can expose the gap between the life you say you want and the life your habits are actually building. Carol Riff's framework puts purpose, growth, autonomy, relationships and self-acceptance at the center of well-being for a reason. Reflection helps you notice whether those things are expanding or shrinking in your life. Fifth, stop making comfort your compass. Comfort has a place. Rest matters. Recovery matters. I care about that deeply, especially when I look at health research. A worn out body and an overloaded mind do not make wise choices. But comfort is medicine, not meaning. It can restore you. It cannot define you. That difference matters. So how do you know if you are on the right path? Not because every day feels amazing. Not because you never doubt yourself. Not because life becomes easy. You know you are moving in the right direction when your life starts to gain shape. When your actions match your values more often. When you respect yourself more. When you can suffer without collapsing. When pleasure becomes a gift, not an escape. When your days begin to point somewhere. That is a sign. And yes, purpose matters. Not because you need some grand mission announced from the sky. But because without purpose, pleasure becomes repetitive. Hollow. Even numbing. Purpose gives your effort a direction. Meaning gives your pain a place to go. That link between meaning, resilience, and well-being shows up again and again in the literature. People with stronger purpose often recover better, endure more, and keep a steadier inner life under stress. Now, if you want to go one layer deeper, Aristotle is not the only voice here. Epicurus also cared about the good life, but he put more weight on pleasure understood wisely and in moderation. The Stoics, including Marcus Aurelius, leaned harder into virtue, self-command, and living in line with reason. These schools differ, but they all reject one shallow idea, that a good life is just a pile of pleasant feelings. And there is one more question worth leaving you with. Is the good life personal, or is it shaped by society? Both? Your character is yours. Your choices are yours. But no one becomes whole alone. Relationships matter. Community matters. Justice matters. A good life is not just private peace. It also includes how you treat others, what you build around you, and whether your way of living adds anything good to the world. Riff's model includes positive relationships for a reason, and self-determination theory includes relatedness for a reason. We are not built for isolated flourishing. So let me close the loop. What is eudaimonia? It is not a mood. It is not a trend. It is not a reward you unlock. It is the slow shaping of a life that is worth respecting. A life guided by purpose. Built through action. Strengthened by virtue. Opened by reason. Deepened by connection. Tested by difficulty. And made whole, not by what you consume, but by what you become. So ask yourself one final question. Are you living well? Or are you just feeling good? Because once you see the difference, you cannot unsee it.